Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves some tracks off of an upcoming album from an act named Fender Jones titled Reflection and Echo. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the three tracks on the screen: Fall Again, Sins of the Father, and My Heart Loves Trouble. It should be noted that the album is still, as I understand it, in production and it's still yet to be mastered. So at the time of recording this, I should also note that this is Fender Jones up front. This isn't the official art for the album, so that will be subject to change closer to the release date. But anyways, we're going to listen through these three tracks from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. Starting with Fall Again, let's go. Wonderful off the bat.
Scared to find a love and get used to it. Then you turn away, 'cause the life I had.
There's a vulnerability to the vocal performance that I appreciate, and the guitars are wonderful with their ambience.
My darkest time, but not my proudest hour. Locked myself away in a shame town. Then you came around and you saw me. Can you love the man that I used to be? A shadow on the rocks, a love that's only seen a loss. I've suffered every cost I had to pay to clear my name.
I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of development here of the theme, because while I am enjoying the sound of the guitars... drums.
Unsure if I will make it out this time. Break me in two, judge what I've been through, and I will give it all up just to be with you.
Beautiful.
And have I suffered enough? Thrown myself against the rocks, battled every single thought. I thought I'd made it, but the dark stays close. A shadow on the rocks.
It's just a really fantastic and beautiful track to listen to, from like the accompaniment, the gentle nature of the guitars, the chimey chords within the harmonies, you know. And the vocals sound very authentic. Nice to have a different lady vocalist here. I think that like in the first part of the song it's assumed that it's either a speech to himself or it's talking to someone that he loves, and this could be the woman, the other person's perspective to it, which I think is great. Great vocal technique from both people, different styles, but they both work within the context of this piece.
A shadow on the rocks, a love that's only seen a loss. I've suffered
Great layering of the vocals here as a bit of development for the outro chorus.
But what if I fall again? Fall again.
Repetition of the hook line is effective. No, that's great. It's a really great first impression to the album Reflection and Echo. It makes sense for the title of the album. What I liked about this track so far is that it just seems so sincere. He's opening himself up immediately to the listener, which is always a good thing. It's good to have a bit of insight into the person as who you're going to be spending the next 9 tracks with, you know what I mean, or the next 10 tracks. And it's just that concern for falling over again, not being able to get out of it, but trying to make the effort regardless because you care about that person. And the woman coming back in and talking about weathering the storm together and just trying to get through it. And I like how they come together at the end as sort of like an indication that they managed to make it work somehow. I think it's fantastic with the story and the vocals and the theme behind it. The combination of the guitar, really gentle drums and the chords and everything like that, as well as all the chimey lead elements and some sort of maybe some higher mid-frequency resonances there from other instruments it was wonderful. It was a great first impression. Although, what I mean to the album itself, of course, because I have reviewed Fender Jones before, Nothing But You and Me and How Can I Be Wrong, but continuing with Sins of the Father, track number 2. Hear what we've got next. Some sizzly lead guitar parts to start, that's great. Similar instrumental textures to what we had before outside of the driven leads. A little bit spicier maybe. Nice pinch harmonic there. Was that an organ as well?
The truth remains unspoken, and it tears right through your soul. And too many backs lay broken by the weight inside your past, and the guilt will come from the blood that runs inside the fears you mask. The longer the river.
I really like the sound of that organ on the right side and the guitar on the left. I think it gives a lot of space for, Fender Jones in the center field. And illustrates the complexity of what's being told that might not be immediately apparent. The sins of the father will visit the son. Great guitar passages there. The lead parts aren't overplayed, but nonetheless still strike an interesting dynamic within a track that we haven't really had so far throughout this album. Yeah, great. Great unison between the guitars and... Oh, call and response, never mind. It's an interesting dynamic we're discussing here within this track, talking about how the sins of the past have to somehow be amended for, even if you're not directly responsible for them. We have a spacey feel to this lead. We got shakers in there as well.
And the sins of the Father visit the Son. The weight of tomorrow has already.
Is there a piano and an organ?
And the sins of the Father
We're used to backing vocals as well.
visit the Son. The weight of tomorrow has already come. The dead lays broken, those waters just run. And the sins of the Father. And the sins
Yep.
of the Father.
We're obviously conscious of the importance of repeating a hook line. It's smart stuff. There's still a relative softness that I think is more sort of like grounded more than anything else, you know? Because you got these kind of folksy kind of rock elements here that are standing out fantastically, and I love the combination, like maybe some sort of country aesthetic there as well. Different genres intertwined there, maybe a bit of blues, but I think this track here discussing, again, like how to sort of amend or cope, take the weight off the neck, etc., trying to find ways to cope with what occurred without, you know, like exacerbating things more or creating even more damage. It's an interesting topic to discuss. I think this is stuff that's directly relevant to Fender Jones. And again, as I've said before, again, it's great to have more context for that sort of overall arc. And I'm glad that the songs are connected. It does help to when you're listening through an entire record. So that's great. And I think the evenness of the theme itself, without getting too sort of repugnant and nasty and kind of bitter or anything like that, is great. It's not off-putting when there's already a lot of sadness within the story that's being told. So that's great. I've got My Art Loves Trouble, number 3. I like the wider variety of instruments within Sins of the Father. I'm wondering what we'll have in this one. Relatively upbeat with a great warmth from the distorted and steel strings.
Like a bitter magnet, you draw me to your breast. Loneliness, it always seems to wear a pretty dress. I can't help.
I mean, like, I'm only laughing because that's the thing, right? You know, I can relate to it. I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to stuff that he's talking about.
Use for the truth. Baby, lie to me, and I'll lie to you. We're like the darkest of rivers, entwined into the sea. Trying to fill an ocean, spills around in me. Your kiss is morphine, and your touch is like the rain.
Your kiss is like morphine and your touch is like the rain. That's some wonderful imagery there. It's very visceral, but
Better, but I kinda like the pain. And we're like oil and water, poison in the wine. It tastes so sweet, but it's an oh so bitter rind. I don't know what's a lie, and I don't care what is true. My heart loves trouble. I know that much for sure. Like a carnival ride through a twisted fantasy. The wheels come off when the alcohol kicks in. It's a roller coaster of darkness and light. We know that it ain't good, and that's alright. We're just addicts.
we're just addicts. I mean, like it's tough to listen to a little bit because it just sounds so real, you know?
But I need more and more each time just to feel the hit. My heart breaks harder than a broken promise to a child. And I'll keep your secret if you keep mine.
Wow, dude. What a line.
We're like oil and water, poison in the wine. It tastes so sweet, but it's a no so bitter rind. I don't know what's
I like it's like a dominant seventh chord or something like that they put there. It's just a lot of suspense.
and I don't care.
It's unexpected, even though I think it was the same before.
My heart loves trouble. I know that much for sure. A glimpse or a glance as I catch your eye. Nothing about this could ever be right. We're fuel and fire, with spark and desire. Pretending that it will ignite. And we're like
Great. It was just nice to have that boom and just like one big section there, a little bit more oomph behind it. Because we've got phenomenal dynamic range within this record so far.
poison in the
Granted, it's before we master it, but still I love it. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
so bitter rind. I don't know what's a lie, and I don't care what is true. My heart loves trouble. I know that much for sure.
Charming. It's great. I understood everything that was going on. This is wonderfully done. And it's a really positive sort of like start to this album. You know, like I understand this is about like a toxic relationship, right? And not being able to sort of really cope with being with that person, but also the hit of that is it's better being low. It's better to be with someone in a toxic relationship than to be lonely. You know, like I can relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to this stuff. Because this is my conclusion in my review of these 3 tracks off of Fender Jones' upcoming album Reflection and Echo, which I think is due out in July at this point. What do I think these tracks are about? Well, as I've said previously, I think these tracks are about personal demons that Fender Jones is going through, reflecting on it, and the echoes within his own sort of like head of the thoughts of all these things and are reminders. I think that's what this is about. You know, outside of that, I think that Fender Jones sells these exquisitely. Like, I think Fall Again was really sweet because he had the lady vocalist kind of come in the interlude to kind of back him up and kind of be a foil for him and then to come together near the end. But just, they had phenomenal vocal technique, but just Fender, it sounds like he's just talking to you and like trying to sort of explain his communication in a way that's still obviously sing. Like, I love his head and chest voice, his vocal technique, etc. And there was some interesting sort of rhythms and cadences of these lines and the way they were delivered. But it's also, again, just how real it just seems, how raw it is for him, just working all this stuff out. And it is a privilege to be able to have you kind of like the door open to view into someone's like life and their situation and stuff. And I think it's fantastic that he was able to express it so eloquently and in a way which is so enjoyable to listen to despite the pain he's going through. So I think that it's a great album so far. The vocals are fantastic, and the stories that are coupled alongside this, they mesh together well thematically, and also in regards to the tone of their performance emotionally, I suppose. The tracks are all like between 4 and 5 minutes, which is outside of the sort of 4 to 5 minute sweet spot, 2 to 4 minute sweet spot I usually have, but I think there was enough context, enough content within these tracks that it managed to sort of like justify it. While the themes of these tracks remain relatively, they never got too sad or too happy. They were relatively kind of calming and soothing, even with Sins of the Father having a bit of sizzly guitar. We never got any sort of harsh textures, but it also never kind of wanted us to fall asleep. It was always the right amount of energy from like the guitars, the bass, the drums, like in Fall Again, alongside like the organs and the keys coming in later on, maybe some other sort of synth or like fiddle parts or like other elements there. I think the backing vocal was just like a backing pad layer there, filled in with everything else. It was just a wonderful chemistry between the various elements there. I mean, I think the lead phrasing in Sins of the Father was phenomenal, really eloquent with our solo sections there without overplaying. Voiced ourselves well as a great sort of like foil to what was going on with the vocal parts. And I think just genuinely the storytelling from Fender Jones kept us going across the line so that the 4 to 5 minutes, even if that's a bit longer than singles I'd usually listen to nowadays, still felt like absolutely nothing. Time flew, 5 minutes was 5 seconds basically. So, yeah, great music. There was a maturity in regards to the way the music was composed and arranged there. We understood that we needed to have some interesting sort of layers and overall harmonies and colorations, but we also didn't have a situation where we really felt the need to be too extravagant or too kind of like off the rails with it, because we understood that the vocals were the focal point, and we just needed to have enough change within the chord progressions of bass lines to justify the 4 to 5 minutes time length, and to sort of like kind of navigate the various hook lines and the other bits of the story to kind of make sense with that. I think that we managed to nail that and hit that on the head. Really, I think that there was not a note out of place with the instruments. I like that we didn't have everything at once. We brought the instruments and sort of developed the tracks gradually, and you know, it was good in that respect, because if you throw everything at the listener at once, it is too overwhelming. In a music where the theme and motif is relatively calm, I don't think that is acceptable or what something you should really be looking into. So that was fantastic, and I think outside of that, just the themes per song, Sins of the Father being a bit more sort of sassy, I suppose, because there was a bit more sort of like intensity and sort of like it was a bit more of a dire, dramatic situation there. My Heart Loves Trouble had more of a sort of a neutral tone to the theme, I suppose, because it was like, well, I like the pain, but I still think I shouldn't be here. And Fall again was calming, as if you're being swallowed by the water that it was afraid of drowning in. It was an interesting time throughout this album, but if these tracks are anything to go by, the rest of the 7 on this album are going to be phenomenal, and I'd recommend anybody listen to the album if they enjoyed these 3 today when it comes out in July. But I mean, the studio recording, mixing and mastering, barring the mastering, because I don't think that's occurred yet, the mixing is fantastic. I can hear all the different elements clearly. There's an amount of dynamic range of this track that's like really positive. We're not trying to squish everything together, so it's the same loudness there. Like in the parts we had, like, I think it's Sins of the Father, we had like the organ on the right and the guitar on the left. Everything was nice and easy to follow along to. The vocals had a presence as well. It was fantastic. It was easy to understand what was going on, whether it was the lady vocalist or Fender Jones, when they came together, as well as in the backing elements of like the chorus sections later on in the other 2 tracks. That was great too. Like there were no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum, and it was nice and wide in the stereo field with lots of different like elements to enjoy and appreciate around there. And it was nice and loud without pumping, so even if it hasn't been limited and stuff like that, there's still a good loudness relative to that. And I just hope that the dynamic range doesn't get crushed in the mastering process, because it's fantastic at the moment. Because this is my review of an album that I'm very happy with so far, Reflection and Echo. It'll be cool to hear it when it comes out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check out Fender Jones's various music via their various social medias. And I'm sure this will be on a digital stream platform soon. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.